Hello, my lovelies. Welcome back to another episode. It's been way too long since I was on here, and I know a few of you have been waiting on this video for a while. But to be honest, I ended up being in a very dark place mentally, and I didn't want to make the video when I was in that state. Plus, I figured going through the recovery period and tying that into the video would be more beneficial. So I decided to wait till post recovery to make the video. And honestly, recovery took longer than I would have liked it to, but here we are now. So let's go ahead and get into it. So those of you who don't know or don't follow me on Instagram or missed this story, I ended up getting rhabdomyolysis after Girl Power in April 2025. And I was in the hospital for 2 nights, 2.5 days. So really the purpose of this video is to educate you guys on what rhabdo is, because when I came out and said, hey, I have rhabdo, I was honestly surprised at how many people didn't know what it was, especially in the bodybuilding community. And to be fair, I knew what it was, but I had no clue what the symptoms were, which is why it took me a while to go into the ER. So this video is supposed to be more of an educational video. I'll be talking about what it is, causes, symptoms, how I was treated, what recovery was like. But really, I just want to be very open with you guys and very raw and very human, because everybody has their own struggles. And I feel like oftentimes us in the bodybuilding community, we don't really talk about those struggles openly, especially on social media, which sucks because your experience may help somebody else. And so that's kind of where I'm going with this video. I'm just hoping that it can help somebody either recognize the symptoms better or just be more aware. But especially because there's a stigma in bodybuilding when it comes to working hard. There's that slogan that we've seen, work harder, no one cares. But working harder may actually be worse than stopping and allowing your body to reset and get the recovery that it needs. The purpose of this video is not for you to pity me. I am just going to open up to you guys and show you my experience in hopes that it can help somebody else. So I want to start by talking about what it is, right? Rhabdomyolysis, short for rhabdo. Muscles have muscle fibers. On a regular day, right, when we go and train, there are these micro tears that happen on the muscle fibers. And then during recovery, those little micro tears on the muscle fibers regenerate. And that's how muscle growth happens. Now in rhabdo, the muscle cells are not able to repair themselves because the damage is just too great. And instead they burst open, releasing all of these cell contents into the bloodstream. Now, when we think about the muscle cell, right, it's made up of enzymes like myoglobin, creatine kinase, proteins, and electrolytes. So all of these contents are being released into the bloodstream. Now, if rhabdo goes untreated for a long amount of time, then all of those toxins are in the bloodstream, which can become life-threatening, right? So if it's not treated, because now we're talking about kidney stress, potentially leading to dialysis. And we're also talking about heart stress because potassium is present inside a muscle cell. So potassium is responsible for making sure that the heart beats properly. When we talk about what causes it, there's a few different things, right? So trauma, any sort of trauma to the muscle. So, things like a car crash, a very, very hard training session can also trigger it. Dehydration and electrolyte imbalances. Now, when we think about what will put you at risk for rhabdo, we have 3 main things. The first one is stimulants. So when we think about bodybuilding in general, right, there are fat burners out there that are very strong and will strip you out of certain electrolytes like potassium. Another thing is water cuts and sodium cuts, right? Because now if you're doing a fat burner that will strip you of electrolytes, and you're cutting water and you're cutting sodium, then that's just a recipe for disaster. So that sums up what rhabdo is, what causes it, and what exacerbates it. Now, let's talk about my experience, right? So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a background story on the show and the timeline, because I think this is very important. So I was on prep for 16 weeks, which is typical for me. I'm a 16-week prep girly. When it comes to my peak week protocol, I have always tapered down water. Now, I'm not saying cutting down water, I'm saying taper down water, right? So let's say on average, I'm drinking like a gallon a day, right? Then on peak week, we'll start tapering it off around like Wednesday, Thursday. You know, maybe I go down to 3 liters and then 2 liters and then a liter and then 500 mils. And then come show day, it'll just be sips of water. That's something that has worked for me. So it's just, you know, something that I've always done. A new protocol that was introduced in 2024 for my pro debut was the manipulation of sodium. So for Girl Power 2025, sodium started to be tapered down around, I think, Thursday. And come Friday, it was taken out completely. So I had probably about 24 hours of no sodium in any way, shape, or form other than whatever is in the food that I'm eating, but I wasn't salting anything. I wasn't taking any sort of like hydration packs or supplementing sodium in any way, shape, or form. I also wasn't supplementing potassium. Now you have two variables which exacerbate the risk of developing rhabdo, right? Tapering down water and tapering down sodium. Now, this protocol was also done in 2024, and I had the same symptoms as I did in 2025. So looking back at 2024 in my experience post-show, I definitely 100% had rhabdo in 2024. It just was not as severe as it was in 2025. So Thursday of peak week, I fly out to Florida, and you know the show is on Saturday. So I want to show you guys a comparison Thursday before starting this sodium and water manipulation to Saturday of show day. I'm going to put the pictures up here. You can see the difference very clearly on my backside. So show day, my backside was not popping as much. My tie-ins were a little bit blurred, and my upper glute was not as round and full. So my backside, especially my glutes, came out a little flat on show day. Now, if we look at Thursday before I flew out to Florida and before the protocol was implemented, then you can see a little bit more fullness in the glutes. Now here we're talking, this is a 2-pound difference, and it's crazy what a 2-pound difference can make, right? I think I look better on Thursday than I did on show day. I just wanted to show you guys the difference on the physique side of things. So, you know, Saturday comes and goes, and I had a very, very, very great experience at that show. That show is always run so smoothly. It's all women, and the energy is just unmatched. Like, it's the only show, it's the only pro show that I've done, so I'm biased. And I'm also biased because it was my pro debut, but it's just an amazing show. And going into the show, you know, my goal was to crack top 10 because I was so close at my pro debut. So that was just the goal. Let's go in, let's crack the top 10, and let's keep moving, right? So I ended up placing 7th, which was amazing. I was ecstatic. I was so close to getting that 6th place medal. And, you know, that just lit a fire. I had plans for my next show and what we needed to work on. And then rhabdo happened, right? So Saturday comes and goes. The show is done. Sunday morning, I get up and I do my cardio before flying out to Georgia to visit the in-laws. We fly out to Georgia on Sunday. Monday, I wake up, I go to the gym, I train glutes. But again, it's not like a full intensity glute workout. It's like probably 40% of my usual. I'm feeling okay so far, right? Come Monday. Tuesday, it's a shoulder day. I wake up, go to the gym, get my shoulder day in, come home. Now during this time, I'm working remotely, so I'm going to the gym in the morning because I have to be online at Arizona time, right? So I'm working from like 10 a.m. to 9 or 10 p.m., depending on the day and the chaos that is ensued. Now, Wednesday, I wake up, I go to the gym, and it's supposed to be a cardio day because I hadn't really done cardio. I had been doing some light walks here and there. I get to the gym, I step on Stairmaster, and I'm on there for 4 minutes. That's when the symptoms start. Now, these are the same symptoms that I had in 2024. And in 2024, I just thought, I'm dehydrated. I just need to pump some water and I'll be fine. So when the symptoms started again in 2025, I thought the same thing. I'm dehydrated. I just need some water and then I'll be fine. You know, when I talk about my symptoms, you're probably thinking, well, what are these symptoms, girl? The symptom I experienced, and it's really just the one, was extreme cramping on my quads. Now, I say cramping, but this wasn't your typical cramp. This was more like a Charlie horse on steroids. Like literally my quads were cramping and you would see like the muscle contract and stay contracted for like anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes. So just imagine both of your quads cramping, contracted, and you're in so much pain. And then the cramping eases. And now all you're left with is weakness in your legs. And then, you know, the cramping stops for like 2 minutes maybe, and then it starts again. And it's on and off, on and off, on and off. When the cramping was going on, I couldn't walk. There was no way in hell I could walk. When the cramping subsided, I could walk very slowly because my legs were very, very weak. Now I'm at the gym, I'm on this Stairmaster. I stop it and I walk back to my car and I call my husband and I just tell him, like, you know, this is what's going on. I need you to go to the grocery store, get me some bananas, get me some electrolyte, like get me everything. I need to hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. So this was Wednesday. The cramping continued all the way through Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Now, throughout this time, I had occasional cramping in my hamstrings, my glutes, and my lower back. But those areas, the cramping was very minimal. It was like your regular cramp. And it was just maybe like once or twice. My quads were the ones that took the hit the most. So like I said, you know, the cramping was bad, very bad through Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Now on Friday, I had the grandiose idea of getting an IV. So we went and we got an IV. When I was sitting there, you know, I started feeling better. The moment I got out of the chair, it was 10 times worse. When I talk about my symptoms, right, the cramping would be exacerbated by changes in movement. So what I mean by that is if I was sitting down for a long time and I stood up, that would trigger cramping. If I was standing up for a few minutes and then sat down, that would trigger cramping. If I was, you know, maybe just standing there and then I start walking, that would trigger cramping. If I walked for a long time, that would trigger cramping. So it was just cramping on and off for 5 days straight. And I was cramping in the day, at night, it didn't matter, right? I will say that cramping at night was not as bad as during the day because I was asleep, but I would occasionally get woken up because I was cramping so bad. Now, during this time, I'm chugging up my water, right? Chugging my water. I'm going to the restroom normally. Now, when I talked to you guys about what rhabdo was, right? We talked about the cells bursting and the cell contents being released into the bloodstream. And one of those cell contents was myoglobin, right? So myoglobin will give your urine a dark color, which is very common with rhabdo, okay? My urine never had any sort of dark color. My urine looked the same. It looked normal the whole time, which was very odd. And the doctors later said that was very odd and that kind of threw them off. Anyway, so Sunday comes. We fly out to Arizona, and that flight, you guys, was the worst flight I have ever experienced in my whole existence. It was so painful, and then all the walking around trying to get our bags just made it even worse. It was hell. it was hell on earth. I just wanted the earth to open up and swallow me whole because I was in so much pain. So, we get home, we go to sleep. Thankfully, I had Monday off of work, but Monday I wake up at 7 a.m. and I'm just in so much pain. Now, if you know me, then you know that I have a pretty high pain tolerance, okay? It takes a lot for me to be like, okay, this is painful. So when I tell you I was in pain, believe you me, I was in a significant amount of pain. I was crying because of how much pain I was in. I woke up my husband and I was like, listen, like this has been going on for way too long. I'm hydrating and it's not getting any better. So obviously there's something wrong. And I need you to take me to the ER right now. We get to the ER. I told them everything, like I'm a bodybuilding. I just did a show. This is what my protocol was. This is where the symptoms started, everything. Just lay it out on the table. I get in there, they get my vitals, they get some blood work, and they're kind of holding me until the blood work comes back. And it was pretty cool. They had this app where I could check my blood work. So instead of like having them bring out a printout or whatever, I could just check. So after this blood work, they come out and they're like, you have rhabdo. We have to admit you. And I'm just like sitting there in awe, like, what? Like, this is something that you see on TV, or you maybe know somebody who knows somebody who's had it, but like it's not something that happens to me. You know what I mean? Like it was a weird feeling. 3 things that I will refer to in this video, 3 markers that were very important. The first one was creatine kinase, which I mentioned at the very beginning when we talked about the cell contents. The second one is ALT, and the third one is AST. Now, if you've done blood work, then you know AST and ALT are your liver enzymes, right? They are the markers that you look at for your liver health. So to me, I saw that and I was concerned because I said, does that mean my liver is now in some sort of stress? It's being impacted in some sort of way. And I found out during this stay that ALT and AST are also present in muscle cells. So although, these 2 markers are typically used for liver health, in my case, there were just contents inside the cells that were also being released into the bloodstream. Now, with that being said, right, my liver probably was in a little bit of stress, but the doctor said, listen, don't worry about your liver, like are because of the muscle contents that are being released. ALT and AST are also inside the muscle cells. So that's really what we're seeing. Now, those are the main 3 that were flagging on my charts, but other parameters to keep in mind were potassium, right? Because that will affect the heart. And then also electrolytes, because you need electrolytes for the muscles to contract, for your heart, for everything, right? So they didn't want electrolytes or potassium to be skewed in any way. And that's why they didn't give me an IV right away because they wanted to see where the electrolytes were. And they didn't want to wash me out even more, right? If my electrolytes were low and they're pumping me full of fluids, then those electrolytes will just go lower. Now, as far as treatment goes, right, the treatment for rhabdo at the beginning is just hydration, right? So an IV. Now, when I went in and I got my blood work done, my creatine kinase was almost at 8,000. The normal upper limit range is 200. My ALT was at 251. The normal upper limit range is 40, so 40 is the max. My AST was at 856 when the normal upper limit or the max is 40. So because of these values, they knew I had rhabdo and they admitted me right away. They put me on an IV, which was hooked up to a pump to pump the liquid faster. And they later changed the IV to a Ringer solution. So Ringer solution has electrolytes in it. So, your sodium, potassium, chloride. So you're not just getting fluids, you're getting also electrolytes with it. So They hooked that on one arm and that stayed there until I was discharged. And they continued to monitor my blood work every 4 hours. So every 4 hours, somebody would come in and take blood out. Now, at this point in time, I was still practically stage lean. So you can imagine being stage lean, getting poked every 4 hours. My arms were bruised. They felt so raw and just icky. Like after this whole experience, I've never been one to be icked by needles. But after this whole experience, I just got the ñañaras from needles. You know what I mean? Like I could not look at needles. I can think about needles. I did not want anything to do with needles. So having to after I was discharged, having to go through and get more blood work done, I was just over it. I got like this weird feeling whenever I go in to get blood work done. I just did not want to do anything with needles for a few months. It was rough. Now, as I mentioned before, they were doing blood work every 4 hours. And I'm going to show you guys the chart up here for the first 2 points. So you can see, right? I came in at 8,000, almost 8,000 when we're talking about creatine kinase. 4 hours later, I was at 23,000. So it more than doubled, right? Now, if the creatine kinase gets too high, that means kidneys aren't doing their job and something needs to be done. Now, when we're talking about kidney health, right, your BUN and your creatinine are the markers that we typically look at for kidney health. Those two values remain normal throughout this whole experience, thankfully. But when my husband and I saw this 23,000 value, and 4 hours, my values skyrocketed. And my heart just dropped when I saw this value because I was scared, honestly. Like I was scared of what this meant. And my husband read my mind. I just did not have the courage to ask. So he asked for me. He just knew what I was thinking. So he looked at the doctor and he asked, when should we start talking about dialysis? And my heart just dropped because I'm sitting there and I'm like, I cannot have dialysis. Like I am so young. Like it was just a very weird thing to think about. I'm sitting there like, I can't have dialysis. Like what is going on? But it was a question that needed to be asked. And thankfully the doctor said, we're still nowhere near dialysis. If we're in the 40,000 range, then that's where we want to start talking about dialysis. It all came down to what the next data point would say, right? Because if we were trending up, then we needed to come up with a plan and start talking about dialysis. But thankfully, that third value came down. So we went from 23,000 to 18,000, which was a huge relief, right? Because I just did not even want to think about dialysis, you guys. It was scary. It was scary to just think about it. So I'm going to go ahead and just put up the creatine kinase, ALT, and AST charts up here, charted over time. So you can see the progression of when I got admitted and then where it was at when I got discharged. I was discharged at 4,000 for CK. And before that, I was at 10, roughly, right? Yeah. So when I was at 10,000, the doctor said, listen, you're trending in the right direction. We can go ahead and discharge you because if we keep you here until your values are normal, we'll keep you here for 2 weeks. So, I can go ahead and just discharge you now. This is where, I advocated for myself because yes, it's great that we're trending in the right direction, but 10,000, it's still higher than what I came in at. And it does not give me the confidence or the fuzzy feeling that it'll be okay. And I did not want to come back into the hospital later on. So I was like, you know what? It's great that you think I can be discharged. Let's go ahead and wait another 4 hours, pull out some blood and see what the data says. The data came back at 4,000 for CK, and that calmed my nerves, made me a little bit more confident that it would just keep trending down. So I was discharged and I got to come home and cuddle the babies. And by babies, I mean my cats. My house is a 2-story, and guys, I curse those stairs every single time, it was so hard to go up and down the stairs. And it honestly broke me because here I am. I just did a 16-week prep, an hour of cardio, 7 days a week, lifting 5 days a week, go, 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 go. You know, I all of this a week before. And then here I am in this moment, not even being able to go up and down the stairs. I cannot even put into words how that messes with your mind. Like, it is just, it was so weird because my mind and my body were not syncing. You know, my mind was like, you're still at this level. And my body was like, no, you're not. You're down here. You're past the floor. You're like in the depths, in the water wells, well underneath the ground. So it was just a very weird disconnect. It took a toll on me mentally and emotionally. It was very, very hard. But you know what? At least I was home. My values didn't get back to normal until 2 weeks after I was discharged. Let me just double check that timeline. Yeah. But, you know, being at home, not being able to lift, not really, you know, being able to walk, it was literally like, you need bed rest. Like it was minimal movement, minimum walking, minimum everything. Like you need to be a couch potato. And that was very hard. But what was harder is just seeing how my body atrophied and how weak it was. So I'm going to show you guys a clip. I took this maybe a few days after being released. I can't quite remember. You can still see the tan on my leg a little bit. And all I was doing is I was sitting on the couch and I was just extending my leg up and down like a leg extension. And you can visually see my quad like shaking because it was so weak. It couldn't even handle just body weight lifting my leg. It was insane. Insane. 2 weeks go by. My values are normal. I'm cleared to go back to the gym. And, you know, I'm super excited. You know, I get to be back on my element and I get to lift. But obviously, I have to ease myself into it. So first day back, I get there and I'm going to show you guys a clip of what I did. It was literally just walking for a few minutes on the treadmill, stretching my legs a little bit. I did a few leg extensions. And the reason why I decided to go with leg extensions is because I knew my quads were the weakest and I wanted to get them into the swing of things sooner rather than later. Everything was a very minimal weight, or for the most part, body weight. So I do my leg extensions and then I did some glute activation exercises, all body weight. I ended up with some body weight hip thrusts. That's it. That was my workout. And the whole time I felt like Bambi. Like literally my legs were shaking. It was hard to walk. I got to my car and I just sat there and cried my eyes out because I had no clue. I knew my body was going to be weak, obviously, but I had no idea that it was going to be this bad. And I took footage of it because I knew that I wanted this to be part of the video. It was, you know, part of being open with you guys, being raw, being human. And again, I'm not showing this footage because I want you guys to pity me in any way, shape, or form. But I am showing this to be real and raw and just show what I was going through in that moment. I feel so freaking sad, devastated because I knew my legs were weak, but I did not expect them to be where they're at. I went from, you know, being so happy, being up high, and then just completely crushed, obliterated to the ground. It is the worst feeling ever. I don't wish it on anybody. I hope that, you know, nobody ever has to go through that after a show. It's just insane. It was not even a hard workout, and I literally felt like a baby deer. I feel like I'm wearing somebody else's skin. I don't feel like myself. I feel very alienated. Like I said in that video, it was a very out of body experience. You know, if you're somebody who has struggled with the proper reverse and you've put on a ton of weight um, very rapidly, and maybe you felt like you were wearing, you know, a fat suit, you felt like you were wearing somebody else's skin. That's how I felt. I felt like I was in somebody else's body because my mind and my body were not syncing. And that was so hard. So hard. And again, it really took a toll in my emotional state. And I questioned everything. I questioned everything. I questioned why I was doing bodybuilding, you know, why even go through all of this for what? Like, what was the end goal? Was it worth it? Do I keep going? Do I just end my bodybuilding career here? Is it worth it to keep going? I went through a turmoil of emotions, and it was just like this up and down hill of trying to battle within myself. I lost myself, if that makes sense. And I was lost for a few months. But I realized, you know, I don't want to quit. I don't want to stop. I want to keep going. I want to see what I'm capable of. I want to reach my potential. And if I can't reach my potential, I want to come close to reaching my potential. So I just held on to whatever little hope I had, and I kept going. And recovery was very tough. It was very tough. You know, I had rhabdo in May, and I didn't start feeling myself until September. And when I say that, I mean like having my mind and my body align, being able to lift how I like to lift, you know, with intensity, having that mind to muscle connection, being in the zone, being able to actually move the weight that I think is suitable for me. That didn't happen until 5 months after. And I couldn't even get 10,000 steps a day. It was impossible. Um, I started out by working out twice a week, and then, you know, increased that to 3 times a week, 4 times a week. And then I tried 5 times a week. That was too much. I had to bring it down to 4. To find that I couldn't even get 10,000 steps, which doesn't seem like that much. It is, it's a good amount, but you know, 7,000 steps would make me exhausted. 7,000 steps plus lifting would make me exhausted. And even now, you know, we're 9 months post rhabdo, and I'm still not 100%. Out to a point where I can get 12,000 steps a day and I can train 5 times a week. But if I have a hard lower body day, then the next day I feel very sickly, like lethargic. And you know how sometimes like you feel like you're going to get sick, but you're just like worn out? That's the feeling that I get. So I have to be very mindful of my recovery now more than ever. I have to make sure that I stay hydrated, and I have to make sure that I am putting hydration packets in my water every day, no matter what. So, you know, if you were to ask me, I'd say that I am still in the recovery phase of rhabdo. I'm probably around 90%. So hopefully in the next 1 to 2 months, I can be 100%. My quads are still the weakest out of my whole body. I think some of that weakness from the cramping is still lingering. But you know what? Whatever it is you're going through, it's temporary. It'll get better. You will get better, and you will come on the other side. Now, I'm going to show you guys here footage from what I think was my first successful training session where I actually felt like myself. So I'm just going to kind of play it in the background. And, you know, during this training session, I felt in the zone. I felt like I was working. I felt like I had found my purpose again. And I felt competitive in the sense of, yes, I want to get up on stage again and I want to do the dang thing. And then after it, I went and posed for the first time. And the posing was the hardest, right? So workout, that was easy peasy compared to putting those heels on and posing. I felt like Bambi all over again because this was the first time I had posed. and actually had like a posting session. But at the end of it all, it felt so great and I felt so good and it just felt like I could breathe again. And at the end of the day, I'm a firm believer that things happen for a reason. And, although the whole situation sucked really, really bad, I still think that it happened for a reason. And it was meant to put me on a different path. So I will hold on to that and keep it with me. I'm almost towards this end of the rhabdo recovery. And I recently found out that my cortisol levels, I'm going to show you guys, are very low. So I am also trying to deal with that. And on top of that, I have been having some digestion issues, which originally I thought were tied to the low cortisol. And after talking to my doctor and telling her all of my symptoms, she recommended I do a SIBO test. So I will keep you guys updated on the results of the SIBO test. Lately, it's felt like I just cannot catch a break, and every single obstacle that's preventing me from competing is coming my way, but I'm not going to let it bring me down. And I'm going to work through every single thing that's thrown at me, and I'm going to step on that stage again. As far as my recovery, I did add some supplements into my routine recommended by my doctor. The first one was GABA. The second one was vitamin C. So I usually take vitamin C during prep, but this was more of a let's just keep taking vitamin C on a day-to-day basis. And the third one is Gamma E. And that's it. That's the video. And I just wanted to end on a call to action note kind of thing. So, number one, prioritize rest, right? If your body's telling you that you need rest, that extra rest day is not going to impact your gains. I promise you. Avoid extremes, which, it's kind of tough to do because we know bodybuilding is an extreme sport. But, if you don't have to do water cuts or sodium cuts or do any sort of like diuretics or anything, then don't do them, right? I just keep thinking back to what if I had done diuretics? Could you imagine like how I don't even want to think about that. If I had done diuretics on top of all of this, I don't even know. I don't even know what would have happened. Also, more isn't always better, okay? More training sessions, more training to failure sessions, they are not always better. Less can also mean more. Be very cautious when you're cutting water or electrolytes, especially if you're on a stimulant or a fat burner that is known to strip these electrolytes. Do not blindly trust anybody. Nobody. Always, always, always do your own research, no matter what. Be your biggest fan and advocate for yourself in any way, shape, or form. When you go to the doctor, when you're working hand in hand with your coach, it doesn't matter. Research, speak up, and advocate for yourself. I know this video is probably going to be pretty long, but that was my story. And I will, continue to update you guys on the health side of things and plants. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, drop them down below, or you can DM me on my Instagram. But anyway, that's it for me. Thank you so much for watching. I love you guys, and see you next time.